Hello friends, I'm Brian, and this is Gizmo Board Games. And today I'm stealing an idea from a friend of mine, Allie, at The Family Meeple. So go check out her channel if you haven't already. It's The Family Meeple. I'll try to link it somewhere if I can, or at least mention it below. Whatever the case is, she does good content, and she plays a lot of solo stuff, as I do too. We've even done a collaboration video last year, and maybe we'll get together to try to do another one, Allie, if you got an idea. Maybe I'll come join you for a change. Not for a change, we only did it once, but I would love to do it again if you're interested. But yep, I'll try to link to her channel, and I'll link to our collab right up here where we talked about our 10 favorite solo games that aren't meant to be solo. With that said, her idea is every 4 months she does a 10x5 solo challenge where she plays 10 games 5 times each over the course of 4 months, and then talks about them and ranks them at the end of the play. And so I stole that idea from her, with her blessing, of course. And some of our games are going to cross over. I don't know if she's released her video before or after mine. Probably before, by the time this comes out, even though I'm probably filming this before she filmed hers. She's probably going to release hers right away. Well, I'm going to sit on this for another week because I've already got plans for other videos. So I'm filming this way early. I imagine her video is going to be out already, but I can't link to it as of recording this, but maybe by the time I edit it, I can link to her video. Either way, I am rambling. Like I mentioned before, the idea is we play 10 games solo, 5 times each, and then kind of rank them up and see how we like them as solo games. And that's, at least from my perspective, how do I feel about these in the solo mode and not just in general, because I might like them better or worse in multiplayer. Because not all of these are going to be solo games. In fact, most of them are typically not solo games, but they have a solo mode. And as you see here, I've got 8 of them here. The other 2 I don't have at the table because they're too large and or I don't own them anymore, as we'll get into when we get there. So anyway, these are 8 of the 10 games that I played in the solo mode over the course of January through April. And now I'm going to go ahead and talk about my feelings on them. So, coming in last place, the number 10 game, solo-wise, is We Have a Problem, Mr. President. It's a game from Play Now, a game publisher that's been around for a while, producing sports games, sports simulation tabletop games that I really enjoy. I love playing the Play Sports games, and they've started coming out with their Play Now line, which I'm on the wrong side of right here, on the Play Now line, where they take up a play at non-sports style games, and this is one of the first ones that they released that wasn't a sports game. I believe this is meant to be played solo only, I'm pretty sure, just by the nature of it. And in this game, you're basically acting as the President of the United States, trying to resolve the crisis. It comes with, I think, 6 or 7 different crises you can play through, ranging in complexity from 1-star to 5-star complexity. And you get rewards based on how complex the crisis you had to resolve was. And as you're playing, you're going to flip over cards that can help you, and then you're going to play crisis cards that hurt you. And you've got 6 dice that you distribute to both try to use towards your help and to try to deal with the crisis. And then you're going to roll a decider die to determine whether or not you were even successful at resolving the crisis, regardless of the die roll played. And you might not even get a chance to resolve the crisis as it gets later and later in the season, because you got to have enough dice to roll higher than the current crisis level. So if your crisis level is 15, you probably got to hold 3 dice to even have a shot at, in fact, you definitely have to hold at least three dice to even have a shot at resolving the crisis. But as you go, you can upgrade your dice to become more and more powerful and able to re-roll them or use them to ignore functions and things. So it's got some dice mitigation and everything. In my opinion, it's a fun concept. I love the concept of it, but the gameplay itself is just too random for my liking because of all the dice roll and the fact that unless you're really lucky with the dice, if you don't resolve the crisis early, you're just kind of stacking crisis on themselves, and you're not going to be able to get around to it because you just will not have the dice to do it. And that was kind of the problem I ran into once I got into, I think, the 3-star level challenge. I tried 3 of the 5 games were at that level, and I failed them all and I had fun in the theory or the theme of the game. I enjoy, but the gameplay itself is a bit too random for my liking. But it's still a decent game and a different game, that's for sure. I don't think there are many games like this one out there. Apologize for the camera. I'm moving way too much. So yeah, it's a neat theme. There aren't many like this, and it just didn't quite resonate with me, and that's why it came in the 10th of my solo 5x5 or 10x5. All right, at number 9 is a game I don't have the box for here. I've mentioned it in the previous video. It's Gloomhaven, and yeah, I've only played Gloomhaven solo, and I know I've heard people say you've got to play it with others to really get the feel for it, but for me, it's just not my kind of game. I don't like story games. I don't care to read a bunch of flavor text. I don't like trying to remember what level things were at and where I was in a campaign and what was going on with the story beats from game to game. If I put it away for a month, I don't want to have to reread, 3 storylines just to try to be like, oh yeah, that's what was happening. I much prefer, if I'm doing a campaign like The Legacy of You, where the gameplay is the same and your powers are mostly the same except for whatever you've added to the deck. And that's where the campaign comes in, is in just the things that have been added. But you don't have to think about them. They're just in there because you put them in there. So the next time you pull the game out, they're just there. They're in the deck. But with the Gloomhaven, you got to remember what choices you've made, what money you have, what level your characters are, what upgrades they have, what was going on with them, how far they are in their personal objectives, etc., etc., etc. And that's just talking about me not liking campaigns. Oh, I should have known I didn't know at the time I bought Gloomhaven that I wasn't a campaign story gamer. So, that's something I've learned because of that game. But the one thing I really don't like about Gloomhaven, I mentioned this before, is the randomness. You can set up all these neat actions that your character has, these abilities. You've set everything up. You've got everything in play. And then you flip a card and your actions miss. Or the bad guys flip a card, and then you've just got to waste cards from your deck just to not die from their hits. And so from that regard, I just don't like the randomness and the fact that everything you do takes an action card. You can't even loot when you kill a mob without playing an action card that lets you loot, or playing a move card that lets you stand on that spot at the end of your turn. So that way you can loot that. So I never had money in the game because I didn't care. I never wanted to waste actions to try to loot things. It was just a waste of action, and your actions are very limited. I played a scenario where I couldn't leave the first room. There are 4 rooms in the scenario, and by the time I was able to kill off all the mobs in the room, I had like characters with 1 action card. Be like, well, that's it. I'm done now, because I can't even your rest. Like, your rest lose you at cards. There's no rest action to get you things back really, unless you play like a health potion or whatever. But those are limited, and they cost the money that I don't loot. So it was a constant like frustration and not fun, and I don't like frustration in my game. I mean, I don't mind thinkiness in the games if I can plan out my actions, and that's what I do like, is being able to plan out my actions. And then my failure is my poor planning or lack of planning, not random luck, random chance, or just things going awry that I didn't cause. And so yeah, it's just not my kind of game. Gloomhaven, I've mentioned this before, I don't like it, and I got rid of it. I sold it off as soon as I finished playing my 5th solo play of the same scenario with the same exact, I didn't even come close result. And I think that was like the 3rd or 4th scenario even in the game. So, yep, sorry I didn't get far into the game because it was way too frustrating to even care. So I played 5 plays of this and then found somebody to take it from me. And now I got a whole cubicle of space for games I do enjoy. All right, number 8 of my top 10 for my 10x5 solo challenge is, all right, here, where? Backwards on this camera. Juicy Fruits, a game where you're just managing resources and trying to collect the things from your fruits that you're generating to generate fruits. Whether you're taking point cards from the display area, or you're selling off the pieces of your harbor for points, or a combo of the two. and you're just kind of racing against the AI opponent who are going to do random things. Depending on, it's got 4 different AI boards that range from easy to more complex, and I played each of them, I think, once at least. And they're not doing anything other than every time you take a turn, they're just going to move 1 space down the track. And then if they run into a ship, they're going to take the points from the ship and then do the action. And you can kind of see what's coming, but you don't know if they're going to go visit the board, what they're going to take from the board. And as things get bought from the board, this is true of the main game too. That's kind of the timer of the game, is as more things get bought off the communal board, the timer moves down. And that's what the opponent's doing. That's what you're doing. And I enjoyed it enough. It's got a friendly resource management game, and you're generating the points from the resources. You can plan things out a little bit as long as nothing gets stolen from the community board. Otherwise, you got to change your strategy mid-flight, I guess. And so it's good. It's a family weight game. I played with my daughter, and she, I think, enjoyed it a little bit. But as the solo mode goes, it's nothing major. It does have a beat the opponent thing, but that's either hard or easy, kind of depending on what is on the board for you to do to get points, and the ship that comes out every time they're drawing a new ship to advance their track. And so some of the games I struggled just because they were scoring lots of points really quickly, and other games I won pretty easily because I was able to just get a bunch of points before they were. And so that's kind of why it fell in the middle. It was a lot of kind of luck based as far as the outcome of the game, but the gameplay isn't luck based. It's very much deterministic based on how you're generating resources and what you're doing with them. So Juicy Fruits, enjoyable, number 8 on the list. Number 7 on the list is a game from last year that I really enjoyed, but after I played it 5 times solo, I kind of felt like I served no chance. It's Discordia right here. I still like the concept of the game. I like playing the game with other people. It's a game where you're just trying to run out of workers, and in the solo game, you have to run out of the workers. That's it. That's the whole goal. If you run out of workers before the end of the game, you win. If you don't, you don't. And so that's cool. In the main game, if you run out of workers first, you win. But if you don't, by the end of the 5th round, I think it is, or 4th round, it's whoever has the least amount of workers. So you can work your engine in a way to get really low on workers and win the game in the normal game. But in the solo game, you can't do that. And it's rough. It's a rough solo game. It's hard to do that without the ability to take all the actions you need to do, and without the cycling of things. You can see in a multiplayer game, you can see what your opponents are building towards and know whether or not you're going to be able to take a certain upgrade or in item card or whatever. But in the solo game, you can see which one's going to go next because you lay them out in a way that you know which one's the next to go. But if it's one you don't have a shot at, or it's the one you have the most shot at, it could still go in the first round because if you're just flipping the AI cards to determine what they're doing for their actions. Another thing I don't like about this game is in the multiplayer game, you're going to be the head roller, depending on the number of player counts. If 2-player count, every other turn, you're going to have all 3 dice at your disposal. In a 4-player game, you're going to have it every 4th round. In this one, I think there's only 2 of the 15 or so AI cards that actually let you have all 3 dice. So therefore, most of the time, you're only going to have 2 of the 3 dice to choose from. And it seemed like every single time, the dice with the bonus ability was the one that the AI was taking away from you. And the bonus ability is big because it basically gives you a free action in the game. And you're kind of reliant on taking the dice with the bonus action that you need or want or whatever the case. Like, it's not always going to happen because, again, it's dice roll. But at least when you are the lead player more often, you're more often going to have the chance at that. Whereas in the solo game, you're not. And so that felt like a hindrance. And so I enjoy it, but I much prefer this game with people than solo. And that's why it's only at number 7. All right, I'm back from a short break. You probably didn't even notice. But anyway, moving on. My number 6 is My Little Scythe, which is here somewhere. If I could get my left from my right, all right, when I'm looking at myself in the camera, I'd be better off. Anyway, my little scythe. I mentioned before that I like Scythe all right enough, and it does what it needs to do for what it is, and that's it. I know people love it, and I like it all right. I'll play it, and it's fine. However, my little scythe, I like slightly more than Scythe, and the reason is it's not overwhelming. I think it doesn't outstay. It doesn't feel imbalanced because, for the most part, everybody's doing the same thing. You can get variable player powers from the expansion, I believe, but even still, most of the variance is going to come from your upgrade action cards that you'll get through the course of the game, and those upgrades aren't overwhelmingly powerful, where you don't feel like one class is just more imbalanced than all the rest. It's a game for families and kids, so it doesn't have any complex rules, and it's just not a lot to teach, but it still feels like Scythe. You still have your action selection system that you're using. You still have, your actions where you're going to move, you're going to collect resources, you're going to try to turn in those resources, you're going to start fights, you're going to try to complete quests, whatever the case is. All those things you do in Scythe, you're going to do in this game without the complexity of upgrading actions on your selection board. So it's just a kind of easier version of Scythe, and it plays a whole lot quicker. So I would just rather, if I want to get the feel of Scythe, play this one. Anyway, about the solo mode. In the solo mode, you're just racing against the AI, and on their turn, they're either going to spot the board with more resources, just like you would. They're going to move, just like you would. They're going to start fights, just like you would, based on an action selection system where they're going to either turn in enough resources, depending on how your level your complexity level. They're going to turn in, if they have those resources already, they're just going to turn them in and achieve the objective. And if they achieve 4 objectives before you do, they win. If you achieve 4 objectives before they do, you win. So that's the first thing you're going to do, is just see if they have enough resources to turn in at the start of their turn. If they don't, they're going to do whatever their card says to do at the top. They're either going to increase their pie track, or they're going to reseed the board, or they're going to move within a hierarchy of movement for each of the 2 characters. And they're going to go try to chase down more resources, because that's their objective, is just collect the resources. And if they run into you, they're going to start the pie fight, and they're going to use pie cards, and you're going to have to defend against it as well. So it feels like Scythe, or it feels like my little Scythe, in that the opponents are trying to do everything you're trying to do too. Their AI cards are going to determine the actions they take. So they might cheat a little bit. They might move twice or 3 times in a row, which you can't do. But also they're going to help resource the board. They're going to go chase down objectives and everything else, just like you will. I enjoyed playing this solo. It played pretty quick and easy, and was just a fun little game. And that's why it comes in at number 6 for me. All right, number 5 is where we start to really get into the which did I like more as far as the solo play goes. And the first couple are going to be kind of beat your own score, or really this one, I guess, is beat your own score. And it's Santa Maria right here is my number 5. It's the solo game, plays just like the main game. You're still using your dice to generate the resources down your columns and rows. You're going to buy things to add to those columns and rows to make them more powerful so you can do more things. You're still going to upgrade on the tracks. You're still going to buy from the shipping row, and that gives you in-game actions and points. And you're going to do everything that the normal game does, because it's a beat your own score game. There is no AI. You're not doing anything different at all than you would if you were playing against other people. And it is kind of a multiplayer solitaire. The only difference is, in the multiplayer game, you're actually racing towards certain dice from the communal pool, where in this game, you've only got your solo dice, and that's it. The communal pool is your pool. It's got the kind of unrealistic goal of most Aporta games, where it says 100, I think, is a good score. And I think I got to like 92 once, and so I technically never won any of my games. But I did have some games where I felt like I did really well, and other games where I felt like the dice roll and my own choices weren't in my favor. And that's kind of how the game's going to play out, whether it's solo or multiplayer. It's still a fun game. I much prefer it, I think, in multiplayer just because I'm not a big fan of beat your own score, and that's why it's kind of here in the 5 spot. It's a fun game. It's an enjoyable game. It's a thinky game where it has the random dice, but they're random at the beginning. You know what you're working with once they're rolled. It's not the other way around, and that's how I prefer it. So I like it. I like everything that Santa Maria offers generally in a normal game, and this does exactly that in a beat your own score style game. So it's fun, but I much prefer having an opponent to play against, and that's why it's at my 5 spot. Number 4 is Pandemic Fall of Rome, which is somewhere here at the top. In Pandemic Fall of Rome, it's generally a cooperative game, so therefore it lends itself to solo play, even if you play multi-hands. But this has a nice solo mode built in, where you've kind of got your cards that are off to the side that you can trade in with an action and move them around to and from your hand. You're controlling 3 different characters who share the same general hand, so you've got 7 in your hand cards to work with to try to fend off the barbarians and or make peace with them. And I really enjoy it. It's my favorite of the Pandemic style games, Fall of Rome is, and the solo mode is good. It's a good way to get Pandemic in play, and I just like this version of Pandemic. I like this solo, the way it adjusts for solo play, or you don't even have to play by the solo play rules. You can just control multiple hands. It's whatever. I like the game enough. I enjoyed the plays of it, and I won some and lost some, just as you should in a good cooperative game. And that's about all I have to say about that. All right. Number 3 is another cooperative game. It's the newer cooperative game. I still prefer the non-cooperative version of Viticulture, but Viticulture World I enjoyed as well. And it's got an automa that helps you, but also it gets in your way. And I don't know that I fully enjoy that aspect of it, because the card is going to tell you where you're putting them out. And they block your spots just like you would in the normal game and I guess in the cooperative game. But in the cooperative game, you can discuss why certain people are going to certain spots and kind of work around it, timing wise. Someone maybe can place their grande worker that they're not going to use otherwise, etc. But in this game, he's just going to take the spots. And then you've got to pay money that you might need elsewhere to remove them from the spot so you can take that action. So that's kind of annoying. But once you kind of get used to that, it's not too bad. He does help you achieve certain objectives. The thing I like is I think there's 7 or 8 different scenarios you can play through, and they all feel like different games. I played 5 different ones in my 5 plays, and I liked them all for the most part. And so it's good. And I've still got a couple more to test out. The 2 harder ones, I think, are the ones I have left. And I won some and I lost some, and they all kind of went right down to the wire after the first couple of plays. So from that aspect, I really enjoyed Viticulture World. I enjoy the game Viticulture in general. I would love to play this with other people and not solo once I teach them Viticulture, because I feel like that's kind of the downfall of this game. It's not only does it require Viticulture to play, so it's not even a standalone cooperative game, which is a little unfortunate. It also requires them to know a good strategy for Viticulture, because it's so tight that you need to know how to win Viticulture to win this. And so I haven't introduced it to anybody because I haven't introduced Viticulture to that many people. And when I do, we just play that, or we play something else, and we haven't come around to Viticulture World yet. But enough about that. This is about solo plays, and I liked it solo. I like the AI cards that Stonemaier Games have. They've done a great job with the cooperative version, or not their solo versions, their Toma, and this one fits right in with the cooperative feel of working with another player. So that's why it's number 3. It was fun. It takes a game I really like and brought a cooperative mode to it that has a decent solo mode as well. Number 2 is a solo-only game, and the last one sitting here in front of me. It is Under Falling Skies, and this game is just fun. It's what is it, Alien Invaders or Space Invaders? Kind of the old-fashioned video game where you're just controlling your ships and you're shooting them down as they get closer and closer to you. And it gets that feel all in a solo play with a campaign that I played through that just introduces new things and new challenges. And I really enjoy it. You're rolling the dice, and those dictate your actions. And you can only put one dice in each column to determine whether you're trying to generate energy, you're trying to research the aliens, because that's ultimately what you need to do to win, is to research them all the way to the top of the track. But also you got to fend them off before they come down, so you got to put some on your guns, which are going to use your energy too. And it's just a neat little game that I just have enjoyed playing. It's a solo-only game, so it's made for this style of play. It had thoughts of solo only in mind, and so that's why it's my number 2. And finally, my number 1 solo play from my 10x5 challenge is Everdell. I have the complete collection way up there. I was not going to pull it down to put on the table with the rest, but I just really enjoyed Everdell, and playing the Mistwood solo with the spider and the plots and ploys just added a bunch of complexity. It's a game where you're minimal workers. You get more and more as the game goes on. Your action selection, resource management, your card play, everything is just super tight, especially with the spider taking up the spots that you're trying to do. And it's a great little game. I've really enjoyed Everdell. I haven't played it in a group yet. I've only played it against the original solo mode and the new Mistwood solo mode. And the Mistwood one is way better than the one that came standard in the game, the Rugwort, I think it's called. To the point, I don't remember how that one played. I just know I played it once and it was okay. But the Mistwood, it really feels like you're playing against another person, and they're taking your actions and they're taking your cards, and they're just tough. They're rough, and they've got 5 different levels of complexity, and so you determine how extra tough you want them to be or not, outside of just the general tightness of the game, the randomness of the various objectives that could come out, the cards that are going to come out, and how they are meshing together, because you've got only 15 places in your tableau to build your critters and your buildings. And the opponent doesn't. They can keep going, and they're just going to get a lot of points, and you've got to try to keep up. I've really enjoyed this game every time I play it. It's been fun, and that's why it's my number 1 game from my 10x5 solo challenge. It's Everdell with the Mistwood solo variant. So there you have it. I played 50 games just from this 10x5 challenge, or I should say 50 times. I got to play solo, which is something I do anyway. And this is how I felt after these 50, plus the ones I played along the way and the different ones. And I'm already set up for the next 4 months, 10 new games in my 10x5 challenge for May, June, July, and August. I'll bring that review and countdown, whatever you want to call this video, to you come September time. And yeah, I enjoyed most of these plays, outside of the super random ones that were at the back end of the list. So yeah, if you want to check out these games for their solo play, I recommend most of them for the most part. And that's the video. If you liked this video, give me a thumbs up. Again, go check out The Family Meeple if you weren't already checking out. I hope you didn't skip my whole video and go check her out instead. I would love if you watched both our videos, but maybe you ducked out of this video ahead of time and checked her out already and then came back to me. I don't know. Or maybe you're not listening to this now. Maybe I'm talking to nobody. But go check out Allie and see what she had on her list. I know she had some of these games on her plays. For example, I'm pretty sure she had Santa Maria and Everdell on hers, if none of the other crossover. But anyway, that's my list. Again, leave comments below on what you're playing, how you enjoy solo games, if you've been playing those, and what else I should check out based on my ranking of these lists. Comment below. And come subscribe if you haven't already. I will see you next time. Bye.